So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Today we're going to be answering Ask HR questions because I'm banned. I've been doing this series for a long time on this channel. I enjoy it quite a bit. I go into Ask HR subreddit, get questions, and answer them. And I have to answer them here because they banned me a long time ago. So we've got some interesting ones from the subreddit out of Massachusetts about the HR job market, about a husband being fired, and finally, where to sue an employer. Let's start off with the HR job market from Massachusetts. They got the SHRM certification back in June. SHRM is Society for Human Resources Management, and the certification is the certified professional. It's fairly prominent. It's kind of lower level. I prefer the PHR. It doesn't really matter, and they have not been able to land a job. They've been going on LinkedIn. It's the same jobs that have been up for 3 or so months. Been applying for jobs in NYC and Miami, and not only in Miami and Massachusetts, and still nothing. And while this is kind of insider baseball rather than a typical Ask HR question that we get, I just want to point this out that the HR market is quite bad. The HR job market is not great. That's what happens typically when you have market downturns. You see people, start to lay off HR folks, and as a result, you're seeing less HR jobs out in the marketplace. HR is definitely overhead. It's generally one of the first groups to go in the case of a downturn. And then, once the downturn comes back, in theory at least, that's when HR comes back. I don't know that we'll see necessarily that. It's probably more likely to be mid upturn rather than mid downturn. It's a rough market out there for HR professionals. If you are struggling in your HR, keep your head up, keep it up, and one day you'll get an HR job. That said, frankly, just the certification in and of itself is not enough. You really need maybe a college degree and start looking for the right jobs, which look like HR coordinators, or maybe for a temp agency. I've always recommended this as long as I've been in HR to get in. To the way you get in is through a temp agency. Specifically hiring people for the agency, and that's a really kind of low level job, but it's a great one to get started and get moving. The next one up is in Washington State. It says husband is being fired and they're threatening to write it up as a resignation. They had a delayed honeymoon, went to Disney out of state, and he told his boss, ahead of time, and the bosses were verbally informed. But then the boss was telling him that all 5 days had been denied. HR told him that if he didn't come in, he would be fired, and that they would record it as a resignation. Do we have any grounds to fight the resignation claim? So, ultimately, I would call, what this would appear to be to me would be a 3 days no call no show, and as a result, the person would quit. And so that's perhaps where the employer is coming from. But y'all also have to remember that we're always getting one side of a three-sided story, right? In addition, and beyond that, 3 days in a row of not calling in might be considered that. Although, the boss allegedly told him to call in sick every morning. I think that that's mostly where the discussion lies, right? HR was probably perceiving it as a 3 days no call no show. Beyond that, potentially, if they had a attendance policy where 5 days was missing 5 days was termination, that would also probably play in there. Not sure exactly. Obviously, based on this, it sounds like this is in great company, and so I would take the L and move on, because I don't think that you really want to fight this. But ultimately, it doesn't matter whether it's a resignation or a termination or a involuntary termination. It doesn't really impact anything. I think that the only thing that matters is with respect to unemployment. Here, a 5 day no call no show, 3 day no call no show ultimately would probably present itself as not getting unemployment, but it is in the state of Washington, which makes me think that you would still probably get unemployment. The question is, if I'm going to sue my employer, will I do that in my state or the state where they're headquartered? And this is really not, the intention is not to do legal advice here, right? The intention is to have these discussions and you, generally speaking, assuming there's not some special circumstances, you would sue in the state that you worked in, right, that you were employed in. But I wanted to highlight something that I found to be pretty interesting because the person made a comment down below. It says, it's a termination that goes against their stated policy with the union. Well, really, how this would go, how this should go, is that the employee should talk to the union, have the union file a grievance, and then be reinstated, and honestly, potentially receive back pay for that time that they've been off. I don't know why you would sue in this case when you have that outlet, and especially if it's a stated policy that is sort of controlled and standardized. The union would have every ground to win. So that would be anyone's first start, is a file a grievance and then go through the arbitration process and then ultimately be reinstated if it's a good union, which ultimately that might be the problem. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.